It's November 5th, 2012. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And it's Guy Fawkes Day. Tonight, we're talking about
you
internet
can
relay
go
chat.
Fucks yourself.
It's a fox with a bomb.
Let's do this.
Oh, wait, I guess you haven't seen Slayer's Try yet. You don't know about the fox with bombs.
You and your fox with bombs.
You're going to like that fox and his bombs.
I can imagine a fox with bombs. I probably, I can almost like, it's like there's a picture of one in my brain, and I'm pretty sure it'll match up when I see the one that is the one you were talking about.
At one point, Gowrie eats one of his bombs, I think.
Why wouldn't you?
He was hungry, so yeah. But I remember the 5th of November primarily because that's when I got my first job in the financial sector and started making money.
I didn't remember it all until some tweets talked about how most people, talk about it, but don't actually know anything about it.
Do you know anything about it?
There was a dude named Guy Fawkes.
Yes.
He was a crazy monarchist.
Yes.
He tried to bomb the parliament in England, in London. He put a bunch of gunpowder in some barrels in the basement, and he's about to light it. They caught him.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and he was basically like the Unabomber, right? And he sort of looked like the V-Mask, but not really. But pictures of him look like that, right? The same way, what we think George Washington looked like. He probably looked a little different, because, paintings of him don't look exactly the way he looked. I don't think there's any photographs of George Washington, right?
Well, we gotta wait. There's got to be some guy on a TV show who met George Washington.
So on the 5th of November, right, the tradition in the UK is to, wear the mask or whatever while, making sort of a dummy out of, to be Guy Fawkes and then setting him on fire as
Nothing burns like an effigy.
As an effigy.
So
to sort of be like, it'd be like if we put a hoodie on a guy and was like, it's the Unabomber, let's fuck him and set him on fire.
So the other fuck him.
Not in the literal sense. In the one of the other.
Nothing fucks like an effigy.
There's 100 definitions of fuck. We're not talking about the sexual one. Right?
So, the reason I think about it is that on October 5th, the fake Twitter account for Archer, like the character Archer, tweeted something about Guy Fawkes Day.
You got it wrong?
Yep.
Was that an intentional joke? Or
I'm guessing it was...
the person who had that account was dumb and
so
remembered the 5th of October.
I am guessing the latter, but someone responded elegantly and they were like, yes, the rhyme says it well. Remember, the 5th of October.
Yeah, remember it well. It was 10-5, and I'm sure in 2015, someone's going to be like, oh my God, it's 10152015. Lots of ones and fives.
So I was up in Albany this weekend and went to visit a distillery.
Okay.
Where they distill spirits, and I tried two things.
Is it a legal distillery or is it a moonshine distillery?
So it was a legal one, and the guy who runs it was totally chill. One, he was like, this isn't moonshine. And two, he was like, we asked him a lot of questions because Pete was there, and Pete, Pete knows his stuff.
Yep.
So at one point, I think we asked him something like, does it matter if you do this and that in the distilling process? He was like, it doesn't matter for fucking shit. You're distilling it. You're removing 99% of anything that was in there.
That's right.
He was like, we do what matters and we don't do what doesn't matter. And he was totally chill in science.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a very large bottle of vodka made from apple cores.
Wait, I thought vodka is made from potatoes.
Well, it can be made from basically anything. Vodka, here's the thing. In the U.S., Americans like vodka to be grain neutral, meaning it tastes like nothing but alcohol because they use it to make silly frou-frou bullshit drinks, and they don't like the taste of alcohol, but they want to get drunk.
That is what Vodak tastes like.
So when an American, when people say they like Grey Goose or one of those like good vodkas, they actually...
I smelled that. It smelled like alcohol.
Yeah, they want something that doesn't taste like anything. So in Russia...
Well, it smells like it tastes like alcohol.
Yeah, in Russia, good vodka tastes like fucking potatoes.
I imagined it does.
But in America, good vodka tastes like nothing.
Even though potato tastes good, would you agree? Potato chip, baked potato, right?
Potato vodka.
You would not want to eat a plain, a raw potato. That does not taste good. You need to do something to it to make it not taste like that.
So anyway, this core vodka is made from apple cores, but it's not...
Well, apple cores don't taste like apple. And is there an arsenic situation?
It kind of... No, it's not arsenic. It's cyanide, for one.
Either one.
Which not only...
Is the percentage so small it doesn't matter? Yeah.
So you read the name of the wind, right?
Yep.
That comes up there.
I know.
The girl is like, isn't there arsenic in this bullshit? And he's like, well, one, it's actually cyanide. And
I'm
two,
glad that you got my reference far too late, thinking I was not
No,
making a reference.
I got the reference right away. However, I knew you, and I was wondering if you in fact had it wrong and forgot that was brought up in the book.
No, I know.
I do enjoy, however, how the dragons go nuts, and then they realize, like, oh,
you can't save this for the book club episode.
there's basically a meth lab out here in the forest. Well, now.
There was indeed.
That was a good scene. I like that.
Yeah.
I finished the book on the subway home, so I'm
Okay.
good.
How about that?
I'll save that for the meta moment.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, we can move on. But anyway, I am drinking the Applejack right now because they made core vodka, which tastes, it's like vodka with a hint of apple instead of a hint of potato. It's really fucking good. And two,
Well, don't drink how much. What amount of it can you drink? That's basically what proof is that?
it's 80 proof.
Oh,
so it's,
you are drinking a very small amount.
yes, this is 40%. So that much of this glass is pure grain alcohol.
Should you not maybe put something in there besides that?
No.
How about
why?
a slice of apple?
I guess I could do that. The thing is, this is
What
Applejack.
variety of apple did they use?
You know what? That was asked. You know what the distiller said? Doesn't fucking matter.
What do you mean it matters?
It doesn't matter.
I say you make it twice, once with Fuji, once with Red
yeah,
Delicious.
you know
It's gonna
what?
taste different.
You distill it. There's no difference.
There's some apple flavor in there, is there not?
Yes.
What apple flavor does it taste like?
Apple.
So like the apple juice.
Do you want to try
one
a
is
sip and tell me
no.
what apple this tastes like?
It's probably tastes like apple juice. Just every apple mixed together.
Yeah.
If you use only one kind of apple in one and only
You know
one
what he
kind
uses?
of apple in the other.
He uses cider apples. Whatever cider apples.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what Applejack is? I knew-
Apples that fell on the ground.
So it was a common
because they're
alcoholic
cheaper.
No.
Because they can't sell them at the grocery
It was a
store.
common alcoholic beverage in Michigan. Basically, what you do is you make hard apple cider, you freeze it, and you cut the middle out of the barrel because that's the alcohol, and it was like this freeze distillation. So this is Applejack.
I prefer the science lab distillation.
Yes, so
to
this is the science lab version of Applejack.
Oh, not the freezing method.
No, this is
Because a lot of people try to do the freezing method in their freezers.
Yeah, not doing that.
That is moonshine style.
Yeah, not moonshine style, dude. So yeah, I'm drinking my Applejack. I'm digging it.
Okay, I'm getting jacked up.
So you got some news? You want to
do.
try some Applejack?
No, I have a news. So, you know how I was complaining very recently about companies not telling people for reasons when they fuck them over. Like, got rid of all your Kindle books, not going to tell you why.
Yeah.
Or closed your account, not going to tell you why, just that we closed your account.
Meanwhile, while we talked about this, last time, my company, when, hurricane happened, we were operating out of our, business continuity plan BS.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than pretending that it was completely business as normal, we actually emailed every one of our customers. We were like, hey, we're working out of the backup data center, so.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Props to you. So, Twitter, if somebody sent in a copyright complaint to Twitter, which is kind of crazy, how could 100 you could infringe a copyright in 140 characters?
Well,
but
theoretically, couldn't any retweet?
don't even get into that.
We've talked about this before.
But Twitter does receive DMCA notices, and they don't really want to have a legal team fight them. Like, if I link to an illegal thing in a tweet, someone might send a DMCA thing to take my tweet down, even though my tweet's just a link, but Twitter's not going to fight that for you, right? They're just going to take you down because they don't give a shit.
Yep.
So, but what they used to do is just delete your fucking tweet because what the fuck, right? But now they are actually doing a good thing. The good thing is, let's say I tweet something, and somehow I put, I don't know, in that 140 characters, I fit all of Star Wars. and Disney sends a DMCA notice like, hey, Scott's tweet has fucking all of Star Wars in it. What the fuck, right?
Wait, so if I tweeted the entire script of Star Wars, 144 characters at a time, would they send individual notices for each one of them?
I don't know.
And how many of them would they have to remove before I would say, well, I'm no longer infringing?
I'm sure Twitter must have some policy about the close your account after so many. But anyway, what they are doing now is they're not going to delete your tweet. Instead, they put a special thing on your tweet, so of course, no one can see it but you. You can still see your tweet, that it's there. You know you made it. You won't hallucinate.
What do they do about retweets of the tweet prior
I'm
to?
sure it does the same thing, but
What if it's the old style RT retweet?
I don't know.
Or a quote, anyway.
I don't know. But what they also do is they put a notice there for you to see, like, hey, yo, dog, this tweet was taken down because blah, blah, blah. And
Weren't they doing something like that for tweets that were censored?
and the notice that was sent to Twitter to tell them to take it down is posted on Chilling Effects where you can go check it out.
Nice.
So this is like...
Oh, wait, auto-posted?
What do you mean?
Like automatically posted on Chilling Effects?
Let's see. The copyright notices Twitter receives can be seen on the Chilling Effects website.
Nice. That is exactly how you should handle that.
So you can go, and if you get a tweet that is taken down, you can go see why. If you don't want your tweet taken down at all and you want to fight it, set up your own Twitter on your own computer.
Remember when we decided Twitter was BS and we ran a Laconica server?
It is BS that it's not
Federated?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's there's not much you can do about that
We could
now.
use Laconica and all of its not that goodness.
No, there's something better will come along soon enough.
Well, I don't think it will soon enough.
Federation has won every battle.
Yes, it has. However,
And it's only a matter of time before Federation wins this battle. Give it 10 years.
no one. 10 years. That is neither soon nor enough.
How is that not soon?
It's soon on the scale of social change among old people, among technologists. Now, that 10 years from now is effectively like Mad Max far future.
Let's think about this. When did instant messaging exist? When AOL came out, 97?
I was using ICQ.
Okay,
through
that's
almost
still
all of high school.
neither one of those is federated, right?
No.
So let's give it 97, right?
Yep.
95, 97, right? Somewhere in there, mid 90s. When did GChat win?
It's hard to say because I kind of stopped using IM as AOL died.
You mean you use GChat now?
I use GChat, but it doesn't actually serve the same purpose because the vast majority of people I know are never logged into it, and I can't chat with them.
No, I'm just saying, when did it win?
It didn't win. That's what I'm saying.
It did win.
AOL and ICQ in my life were replaced with fucking nothing.
GChat won, I'd say.
When I used AIM, Scott, I had like 300 people on my list, and I knew all of them and would talk to them. Right now, there are 14 people online in my list, and another like 20 that are not online. And you know what? The majority of them are G+ contacts who don't ever respond if I message them.
Pretty sure Google Chat won sometime shortly after we were out of college.
Fuck you, it didn't win.
06, so it took about 10 years.
To not win.
Uh-huh.
It didn't win.
It won.
It didn't replay. It didn't do what it did before.
It did what it did before.
Well,
You're just because you're not using it the same way you use the
no,
other thing.
I am using it the same way. The problem is everyone else I know and knew is not.
That's not my problem.
Uh,
It's still the other instant messaging things have faded. The GChat has elevated. That is all. That is therefore it has
yeah,
won.
so the previous world order disappeared, and a very, very pale simulacrum of that world order
All right,
almost started
Can we
to
move
maybe
on the show
reappear.
instead of your craziness?
So, long time ago, as in October. Oh, no. I'm going to go even older.
Remember the October.
September 22nd. There was news posted, and people were talking about. Now, the headlines were, Ermagerd Ubuntu has Amazon ads pre-installed.
Let me just GChat you this link.
Yeah, you and I use GChat. I can list.
Continue with your news here. Stop diverting.
I'm just saying, no one else does.
So you're diverting. You
Hey,
can't just repeating the same thing 100 times.
If I message everyone who's online
You're gonna make
now,
that
right
the
now,
whole show, repeating the same thing over and over again.
That could be a show.
Go back to your news.
Okay, so Ermagerd Ubuntu's gonna have Amazon ads in it. Now, of course,
True.
yes, the majority of people who saw that at first were like, no, that is clearly some sort of hyperbole. No, it's true.
It's true.
Straight up true. So the deal is, if you use Ubuntu
12.10 or
newer, and you use that little dash search, so like in Windows, like
And
the
you-
Windows
yeah, you-
key,
you use
and I
the-
start, like right now, I start typing like, I don't know, putty. There it is. It found putty on my file system.
Yep.
So now on
Actually found it in your
Ubuntu,
start menu.
yeah, if I do that equivalently, it'll find putty. I guess I don't need putty in Ubuntu.
It'll also give you a link to buy Silly Putty on Amazon. And if you buy Silly Putty, Amazon gets affiliate dollars.
Yeah.
So it's like if you type in terminal, I tried this, you get, the link to click on to open your terminal.
You also get this like terminal app you can buy for $1.
Well, you also get like Terminal 5, the band, buy their album.
So 1, this is stupid.
Yes.
2, it's useless to anyone smart. 3, it's only going to piss off nerds who are a full half of Ubuntu's user base.
A full 90%.
No, because I think the other half is grandmas and parents and cheap people for whom the neighborhood kid or grandson gave them a computer with Ubuntu on it.
That happens, but I believe it is rarer than you think.
I think that happens more than you think because the nerds, by and large, seem to be doubling down in the other direction and are using like scientific Linux or other craziness.
What?
And outside, like in
No
companies,
one's using that.
in companies, most people use CentOS or SUSE still.
Yeah, it's true. At
Yeah.
least in the the bigger companies.
As an aside, I recently installed Ubuntu,
Yep.
to just because I needed a Linux box to do real computing on, and I had previously used CentOS. Oh my God, does CentOS suck fucking ass for anything desktop
Yep.
or server?
Yep.
But Ubuntu's not good at server either.
No,
So
the server Ubuntu's not too bad.
okay.
Depends on what you need to run. If they have the package for
yeah,
it.
you want to use Tomcat anything?
No, you don't do that. No, bad choice.
Granted, it's hard to use Tomcat on any Linux,
That's
so it's
true.
not
yeah.
like.
But the Ubuntu one, the default Tomcat, if you
Ubuntu.
apt-get it, is all weird.
But anyway, this was the thing, and of course there was the major crazy outrage. So there was the follow-up story of Shuttleworth saying, "Trust us, we're trying to make shopping better." No, you're not. No, you're not.
No.
What you're trying to do is siphon affiliate dollars from people who are dumb enough to go, "Oh, I guess I do need silly putty."
Well, mostly nerds who are using Ubuntu aren't going to use that default desktop, right? It's Ubuntu's doing anything it can to try to find a way to make money when the only product they have is a free
Now,
operating system.
the reason I bring all this up is one, the newest story, there's the trifecta here, is that the EFF has basically come out and said, "Hey, Ubuntu, stop this bullshit, make that disabled by default," because independent of my ideological complaints and my I don't want to see ads ever complaints, I mean, there's a reason I use ad block.
Yep.
The operating system is sacred ground. You don't fuck with that. And while you're going to say...
That's
all
not
you,
the operating system.
Yeah, well,
Only
all
the
you
Linux
new Linux
kernel
people
is
out
the
there are going to
operating
say
system.
that is not the operating system. For the majority of people, that is the operating system as far as they're concerned.
Yes, but
Yes,
not by the technical definition of the term operating system.
Yes,
by
however-
by the definition of software that is installed on your computer before you have chosen to install additional softwares.
Yes, so the GNU Linux beard is in fact 100% technically correct and useless. For a normal person, if they put the Ubuntu CD in, when they're done, that's Ubuntu.
Yep.
Whatever they see when they log in.
Even the applications that aren't Ubuntu, like Firefox.
So people have been
Which are-
nerds have been afraid forever of Microsoft or Larry Ellison and all his bullshit putting ads in the operating system. I know what you're trying to do, Ubuntu, but all you're doing is going up to a bunch of angry nerds and poking them with a sharp stick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else to say about it other than that the EFF's concerns have nothing to do with that. Their concern is simply, yeah, so you're sending Amazon information and then getting back results?
You're sending Amazon everything everyone types into their...
So when the guy's typing like My Little Pony fan fiction because he's trying to find his folder of fan fiction, Amazon's going to see that and recommend things? Now, Gmail does that too. But at least it's...
You're not typing My Little Pony fan fiction.
You're not using Gmail to search your own computer.
Yep.
So this is bad all around, and it is possible to turn it off, but even if it is, it really reduces the trust of Ubuntu as a Linux distribution.
That's why there's stuff like Mint and shit.
Yeah, but
And that desktop that, is not really that good.
I don't like it at all. But Windows 8, the Metro that's not called Metro anymore, is just as bad in every account except for the fact that it doesn't show me ads, but that's a separate discussion. Really,
At
what
least
this...
I know a lot of people who upgraded to Windows 8 because it is better in some under the hood ways.
It is.
And they just disable the Metro and just go straight to the regular.
Yeah, for now. My fear is not that Metro sucks because I can get around it. My fear is that the desktop side of it will be deprecated.
Mm-hmm.
And UEFI and all that other stuff. But the reason I bring up this whole thing with Ubuntu is because Ubuntu, what it says, really, is that desktop Linux is in fact dead and they need money or it will die.
Well, here's the thing. They do need money. At least Ubuntu needs money. But
What other desktop Linux is there?
well, I think what could happen.
We had the HTPC movement with Boxy, but Boxy went
No.
full bastard and ruined everything.
Here's what I can see in the future, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, notice Boxy didn't do too well with this trend
I
either, right?
know.
Here's what I see in the future, right? Normal peoples who only use their computers for normal type things, right? They aren't going to need a laptop desktop. They're going to get by with a tablet phone, maybe some, similar Apple TV kind of device in the TV, something, right? And the only thing desktops will be used for is people who need to do work and people want to play games. And that's pretty much it. And they're not going to be,
Now, when you say games, you mean PC games in the traditional sense, not Angry Birds.
Serious games, right? So that's the only reason people are going to have desktops is to do work and play games. So
I'm here to do work and play games, and I'm all out of operating system.
And in that sense, right, I think Windows was going to, there's the library of games for Windows. It's so big. It's going to take a long time to make Windows not needed for games. But I could see the newer versions of Windows being bad and the Steam Linux coming on so strong such that, in some number of years, maybe 10 years, whatever the other thing I talked about will happen, when Twitter's federated, you will have, the games will come out for Linux because that's the only, modern operating. There'll be a point at which, Windows 7 you need to keep a Windows 7 around to run the vast library of old games, but it won't be an operating system you can actually use for computing daily. So you'll need to use Linux for that, or OS X. Those will be if OS X is even still around. It could be all iOS by then. You don't know. So you're going to run Linux and new games and your everyday computing Linuxy, and your Windows will be around for your old games, the same way some people still have DOS for old games.
Well, we'll see. There's another factor that
But most people won't even have a desktop
Our
computer.
good friend Conrad did link to an article recently that was actually very interesting.
The one that talked about how...
It argued that the shittier a person is
Yep.
at using computers,
They
the
need
more powerful a machine they actually need. The gist of it was that someone like me or Scott, or some of you who are listening... If I have a shitty ass like a 486, I understand its limitations and I can deal with all of its limitations. I know what I'm doing. So some crappy little netbook, or like my laptop, my new laptop, it only has like 120 gigabytes of space total.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine for what I'm doing. But if you gave that laptop to just some random schmo using a computer...
That's usually those people, they only have one computer. That's their computer, period. They don't have multiple
He'd fill it up
computers.
immediately with his iTunes collection and his torrents.
Yeah, he doesn't know about things being stored in spaces or which hard drive's filling up, right? And his CPU, he'd probably install all kinds of spywares. Needing a bigger CPU and more RAM to make the computer not be useless after he's fucked it up.
So this tablet revolution, I think, is going to come back in the next year or so.
Well,
and
what
start
that
biting
does
people.
is the lockdown OS prevents them from fucking the shit up.
But at the same time,
Such
they'll be
that-
locked into a hardware upgrade cycle that is more rapid than they were before because they're
True.
going to have a weak laptop or a weak tablet. A year later, one that's twice as fast comes out, and because their old one is slow, I mean, even Android, my phone, slightly sluggish if I use some of the advanced stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I needed to upgrade my iPhone 4, which is still otherwise serviceable, to iPhone 5 so that I could play Super Hexagon.
So there's a lot of concerns around this, but the moral is that desktop Linux is having some trouble.
Well, when is it not had trouble?
More so than ever before.
I think it's looking promising, even though Ubuntu is doing stupid shit,
Ubuntu.
simply because everyone else is just abandoning even fighting them. It's like, they just sort of, Linux just sort of hang in there.
Yeah.
It kept being the loser. It'd be like if every team quit the NFL except the Cleveland Browns. They'd be like, Super Bowl, yes!
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
But anyway, things of the day. We talked about on an episode we recorded that has not aired yet about pre-hoc and post-hoc trash talk. So I am now, right now, 6:45 p.m. Dateline, Guy Fawkes Day. I am going to pre-hoc trash talk the 2012 presidential election. My thing of the day is a video from last year when Obama won, or last election.
4 years ago.
When Obama won. And it is Get Your War On, which is they do kind of good, funny, rotoscoped animations about politics. It's kind of like a webcomic, but in YouTube form. And they have one of the funniest videos ever. This is the kind of thing that tomorrow, when Obama wins the election...
This is one of the funniest videos ever.
No, but tomorrow, this is funny in one context. Tomorrow, when Obama wins the election, you mail this, a link to this, to your scary conservative aunt. Or Scott Johnson's dad. That is what you do.
Okay.
It's pretty funny, too. Mostly the whole dashiki thing.
Yeah. So everybody knows.
Yeah, man. Whatever scares you the most.
It's football time, and everybody knows that nerds, even nerds who don't like football, know Tecmo Bowl. And
Tecmo Bowl is, in fact, in my opinion, the most fun football-related video game ever made.
especially Tecmo Super Bowl, right? And the also not so often noticed Super Tecmo Bowl, right?
Yeah.
The Super Nintendo. But anyway, Tecmo Super Bowl. Everybody knows that there's some guys out there who are so into Tecmo Super Bowl that every year they update the rosters of all the teams, and they have all these ROM hacks, so you can play updated Tecmo Super Bowl all the time. It's pretty great. So the website for that is actually tecmobowl.org. I just learned that. But more importantly, my thing of the day is that NFL Films, pretty much the reason the NFL is popular, made a documentary about Tecmo Super Bowl that already aired on ESPN2 and the NFL Network a bunch of times. But I'm sure if you wanted to, you could find it somewhere to watch it. So I'm linking to tecmobowl.org. Actually, I'll link to the post about this documentary on tecmobowl.org. But yeah, you should go and watch this documentary because they interview all the guys, who are always, hacking the game and playing in Tecmo Bowl tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And it is pretty cool.
So, in the meta moment, we're going to be at MagFest, fucking shit up.
That
Hopefully,
is a long-ass time from now.
It's November, so 2 months from now.
Yep.
Not that far.
Long time.
We're going to be at PAX East. We're going to be at PAX Australia. We're going to be at Anime Boston and Kineticon in July.
That's right.
Actually, Kineticon is slightly before PAX Australia.
Okay, the book club book is still...
The Name of the Wind, which now I know.
Yes, you know the name of the wind.
I like how, not to spoil, but there's a point in the book where someone's like, say this word. I'm like, oh, that's the name of the wind? And they're like, yes, that is the name of the wind. That word right there.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, there it is. I can say it.
All right. But yeah, the Name of the Wind is the book. I guess Rim finished it because he knows the name of the wind, so we'll be talking about that relatively soon, and then Rim will pick something else, probably awful.
Probably The Great Gatsby.
Great.
Because I want to read it before that movie comes out.
Great.
Supposedly a good book. Or I could pick the second book in The Name of the Wind.
I already bought it.
I'm going to read it.
I bought it. I have it. It's sitting there.
Because, granted, I tired of some of the Harry Potter crap that happened, but otherwise I liked it.
You always like reviewing the book club book before the episode. We might as well not even do the
tantalize people
episode.
into reading these goddamn books.
I don't think even that amount of tantalizing is going to help.
It's a pretty good book.
Anyway, any other meta? Oh, I sent out the newsletter today.
Yeah.
I think I fixed the problem where the text version is not screwed up. Apparently, there's a button you have to click to update the text version after you edit the HTML version.
We'll find out.
Why do I have to click that button? Seriously, it should be automatic. But yeah, I sent the newsletter. If you want to email questions for the newsletter or fan art we really also need for the newsletter, you should just email that shit. Geeknights@frontrecruit.com. People seem to like the newsletter. No one's ever unsubscribed from it.
Yeah, follow the Twitter, follow all our business, follow the YouTube channel. Watch out because as soon as New My Little Pony starts, Radio Free Equestria is starting legit episode by episode. So
what, that My Little Pony? When is that starting? Actually,
that's coming up pretty soon.
How soon? How soon would that be?
How many days? I don't remember.
You don't remember how many days it is?
No, I guess I'm
what
not
if
as
I
hardcore
told
as
you
you.
it was 5 days?
Oh my god! Well, I am drinking Applejack as we speak.
That's what is it? Was it ponycountdown.com or something?
Let's pull it up, Pony.
Ponycountdown.com
Because to this day,
says
I still get
4 days, 15 hours, 9 minutes, and 40-something seconds
You
as of this
kids,
recording.
I get more correspondence about fucking Radio Free Equestria, where we did like 13 episodes, than I get about anything else I've ever done in my life, except
I'm
for
gonna tweet
Goonies Game
out
of Thrones.
Pony Countdown just because.
But yeah, for all of you who bother me all the time about that, yes, we're doing it. We're starting a season of it in 4 days and 15 hours plus the length of one episode plus however long it takes us to record an episode.
And put it online.
Which is pretty quick now. I actually streamlined my process.
Okay, so let's
So Internet Relay Chat.
Yeah. We're supposed to do an episode on this.
So
'cause
I'll
that's
admit,
the only idea we've got.
So way back in the day, I was really big. I gotta get away from this Pony Countdown because I'm just staring at it. So a long time ago, I wanted to get on the internet, and I didn't know how.
Whoa.
We had Prodigy Classic.
Mm-hmm.
There, you couldn't get on the internet from there, and I didn't know what the internet was. So I remember I went to the library, tried to find books on the internet, and I vaguely learned about ISPs and ARPANET, but I couldn't quite figure it out. and I'd log into like BBSs and chat with people and all this stuff. I didn't ever actually use IRC until I was in high school.
All right.
And I didn't use it that much
Okay.
because by the time I learned about IRC and started using it, I already had ICQ, which 100% replaced it for me. I used IRC more in RIT than I used it at any other place in my entire life.
I keep using my use of IRC is increase, decrease, increase, decrease. It goes up and down, back and forth, right? But basically, back in the day, I was much like you. I learned interneting. I actually learned HTMLs before I had internets at my house. At summer camp, I learned the HTMLs with Netscape.
I was in the same boat. I was in middle school, and a guy was like, I learned how to program, and I was like, what?
Right. So
Okay.
anyway, I went, when I got AOLs at my house, I wanted to use Netscape instead of this. I knew that this browser in AOL was no good, So I learned you could you could minimize AOL and just open up Netscape. And it
See, I
totally
never
worked.
used AOL, so I went straight from Prodigy to, oh my God, fucking internet.
Yeah, then I had fucking internet after that. I just had to dial up into the local phone company up when I had my own computer upstairs. But anyway, once I learned you could do that, I was like, hey, are there other programs that you can just run to use the internet with So of course, I was using the chats inside of AOL, but they were sort of very restricted by AOL. So I discovered IRC, and I was like, oh, you get this MIRC program, and look at all these chats about things.
Now, even as late as when we were in high school, it's interesting because IRC and Usenet were they're things now that the only people who really know about them and use them to this day are really old people, usually with beards, or young punk kids who are in the like dark net of like super piracy,
or super tech people,
or child pornographers,
or people in the who are doing dark evil things, right?
Yes.
So,
but even as late as when we were in high school, IRC and Usenet still worked the way they were intended to a large degree.
Yep.
But then they were ruined by things we'll talk about.
Well, IRC mostly works the way it's intended.
Yeah, well, the thing is, back
but
then...
news groups not as much, but some news groups still do, especially like the academic ones that, people are still on, like Comp Lang, something. There's, if you're at a university that still has a news group server, you can use that the old school way.
You can, but the problem with IRC, to just talk about IRC, not get into the additional problems of BBSs, and Usenet was that...
Let's do a Usenet show.
So the way IRC works in the same way email does, in that it was designed in an era when no one really considered the possibilities of things like spam. It was just, all right, I'm going to run an IRC server. Hey, Scott, you run an IRC server too? I'll tell you what, let's join our server. So all my channels show up on yours and vice versa, and all our users can just chat.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to connect to a server so far away where there's going to be this big-ass delay, right? Why would we, that's so annoying. And if you want to chat with someone on one server and also chat with someone on another server, that kind of sucks. Because now you just suddenly you're from your local computer, you have to connect to all these different servers. That fucking sucks. Instead, everyone can connect to one server, right, the one closest to them, and join any channel they want to talk to anyone they want. And if there's anyone who you want to talk to someone who's on connected to a different server, the servers will talk to each other, and no one needs to make these, multiple connections from their house clogging up the whole internet.
So there were semi-private IRCs. Like there were completely cordoned off IRCs, like chunks of servers that would talk together and they have their own rules, their own culture, their own whatever. But there were also very large kind of universal IRC networks. You connect some alternate server.
Freenode, FNet, alternate, downnet. There's basically big groups of IRC servers. They have servers all over the world.
Yep.
And all those servers are basically effectively the same server. You connect to them and you see every channel that's on every one of those servers with every user, and you can join any channel and talk to anyone. So
now think about that. Think about how hard it is, for example, in the modern internet, to ban one person from a network like that, where all these servers are completely federated. I'm running an IRC server. If the network trusts me, it trusts me.
Yep. You have to send that ban to every single server so they all know that you're banned.
And even then, what do you ban? You can just change your nickname all the time. You got to ban based on fucking IPs.
I change which IP I'm coming from because I use a VPN.
Now I got to ban an entire net mask.
But now I'm using a VPN that tons of other people are using because it's like some it's one of those Tor things. You can't ban the whole thing.
Yep. Well, you can maybe in some. So now look at this problem. To have a relatively usable IRC network, maybe you just fucking ban all those services and have a very restrictive
No,
system.
instead what people do is they just let IRC go nuts.
Yeah, the thing is, IRC was always this kind of Wild West place. I mean, when I was hanging out in IRC, when I would idle in high school, which basically IRC is the idle relay protocol.
Well, it's so weird, right? Back in those days, those 90s, and you chatted, you turned your computer on, you dialed in, first of all.
Yep.
You would open the chat and you would be looking at it. That's all you would be doing is looking at the chat and chatting.
Occasionally, I'd be in multiple
Especially
rooms at the same time. I'd be like chatting with my magic friends in the magic room.
There'd be such a limit. A lot of role-playing chats would happen. I guess those still happen.
I did a lot of that. A lot of Forgotten Realms Forgotten Realms
Correct.
role-playing.
That's correct. Okay.
Yep.
But nowadays, people don't do that, right? But what do people do? Well, in fact, I've said this before.
Nowadays, we're talking 10 years ago, too.
Yeah.
RIT.
Well, what I'm saying is that nowadays, people... Sort of Twitter, in my eyes, has replaced the need of IRC, right? You don't have to pay attention to it all the time. It's basically Twitter is one big chat room, and the whole world is in the chat room.
Well, but I'm really in a chat room that consists of the list of all the
Yes.
people I'm subscribed to.
But by default, everyone is on mute. So you basically join this chat room with everyone in the world in it, and they're all on mute. And then you unmute individual people, and that's Twitter, right? So what IRC is, basically everyone is not on mute by default, but you go into a channel that doesn't have everyone in the world. You go into a channel that's a few people who care about the same thing you care about. And that, but usually what happens is, you go into a channel, but the people in that channel, they're in there, but they're not at their computer right now. They're doing something else, like browsing the web or playing a game. They just want to hang out in the channel. So everyone's hanging out, but not saying anything. But then if you need to say something, you go in there and say it, and there's no response. But then later, someone might come and look and notice, someone said something, and then respond.
And you got to idle. You got to just hang out in the room.
Yeah, if you don't hang out in there, you might miss when someone says something, right? So now the way people use IRC is so messed up is...
Now, what's interesting, talk about old IM, the reason I hated AOL so much was that ICQ did a lot of that stuff. Like ICQ, I could send messages to people who weren't online.
Yep.
I could start a chat room that people would come and go. And I actually, once ICQ really caught on, I used that I would spawn chat rooms and have 20 people in them all the time, and I basically stopped using IRC.
Yeah. So, but IRC had other features, that are not present.
Like wars of trying to flood someone out of a channel, or
bots and things.
crazy net split bullshit where suddenly the channel splits in two because the network had a problem.
Yeah. Well, so a net split, right? We said in IRC is when there's. You have all these servers that are all part of the same network.
Yeah. Say I'm connected to my own IRC server that I run.
Yeah.
And
We only
Scott's
have
connected to Alternet, and my server's trusted to Alternet. So we're chatting with each other, and there's a bunch of people in the room. Say my server loses its upstream connection to Alternet. Well, suddenly, I'm still in my room with all the people who are connected to my server and all the servers connected to me in the tree up to the point where I lost the connection. And Scott's connected to Alternet with all those people, so we're both in the same room, but we see a different list of people.
And we're talking, they can't see what I'm saying, and he can't see what he's saying because we're separated. And then eventually when the internet comes back, we'll be reconnected to each other.
Now, woe betide when, the op in the room gets split away, and then, someone else abuses op to fuck up the room, and then the rooms recombine.
Yeah, IRC, unlike other chats, has this sort of inherent structure of, controlling the room, being the operator, who can ban people and kick people and set the title and
Yep.
and gets all these privileges and setting who has what
Which caused a
privileges.
weird sort of social structure where, the people who had that little plus next to the name were they were the nobility. They were better people.
Yeah, there's the technology of how the rooms are managed, created this social structure around it that matched. It wasn't the other way around. We come up with the social structure we want, and then we make the technology fit that. They just sort of made this technology, ChanServe, listserv stuff to manage, who's in what rooms, who controls the rooms and channels. And from that came how you have to manage an IRC, which is annoying because you really have no other choice. It's not like if you don't like the way PHPBB does it, you can switch and use vanilla. It's like this IRC and this IRC. You can't switch to some other non-IRC thing that does it differently. But yeah, I mean, you could, I guess, come up with, write your own ChanServe bot, but no one's going to do that. That's effectively part of IRC, right?
But it's interesting that, again, all this culture, there were ways to, block people, ban people, deal with stuff, but it was very Wild Westy. And if you were smart enough, you could get around any ban, any problem. You could always get in and fuck shit up and flood people.
Yep.
There was no way to prevent it. And that's why protocols like this, like email, the idea of spam is a problem because email is a very similar system. My email server has to trust any email it gets. And the best we can do is rely on blacklists and like heuristic searches and things to identify spam. There's no sort of inherent rate limiting in the protocol. Meanwhile, AOL Instant Messenger, being a sort of private proprietary thing, had that rate limit. If I chat at you too much and you're not responding, Maya eventually won't let me chat at you anymore.
Yeah, well, you're only connecting to the AOL server. It knows.
Yeah, they control everything.
With AOL, there's so many servers, right? You can hit each one once, and they
But
won't
this
know.
is the power of IRC. You can have this. IRC is really useful, in my opinion, nowadays, along with BBSs for subverting bad governments, getting information around barriers, and sharing things that are difficult or illegal to share.
Yeah, well, it's so weird, right? On the one hand, there's nothing about IRC that makes it any more or less secure than web or anything like, right? It's just you're sending text over your internet wire, and you could put encryption or some sort of tunnel on it with some other technology. But other than that, I mean, it's no different than the web. It's just a different protocol of bits going over TCP/IP.
There's just so much going on, and it's such a distributed structure, it's very hard to police it.
Yeah, and the real big thing is that it's, most people, when they use the internet, quote, right, the only applications that they really use on their, locally are the web browser. Almost 90% of everything is in the web browser. Maybe they have a desktop email client like Outlook. Maybe something like iTunes will use some internet, right? That's pretty much it. So all these other applications that are internet protocols, it's like just because the fact that most people don't know about them or use them sort of makes them hidden from the public just because they're not something that people know about, even though they're even though you can just download them and use them for free, no problem.
To this day, I have access to an internal IBM like straight up listserv, and there's just awesome tech discussions in there.
Yeah. But it's like people just don't know about listservs so much, except tech people.
Yeah.
So that whole part of the internet is super hidden away just by the nature of its obscurity and inaccessibility, user interface, and marketing-wise.
Which at the same time lends it a sort of mystique, which is why I think like our own IRC channel is actually pretty popular, and nerds who use IRC, because it's kind of this cool thing. Like, the super mundane people will never use IRC.
Yeah.
But the kind of slightly more hip people on the internet will use it because it's kind of a status symbol. And once you're in IRC, it's interesting how the culture of IRC use seems to have I've seen people hanging out in these chat rooms who clearly never used IRC in the 90s or the 80s.
Yep.
And yet they sort of rediscover the same culture. We did that lecture. The game makes the community. The medium makes the community in this case. IRC community sort of forms the same way no matter who's using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, there's a whole bunch of things like this. News groups also, how because it's, hidden, quote, hidden. It's not actually hidden, but it's just not, it doesn't put itself out there marketing-wise, and it doesn't put itself out there user interface-wise.
Like the hole-in-the-wall restaurant that no one knows about.
Right. It's like you have to know about it, you have to learn how to use it, and you have to intentionally go do it to get in there, that when you're using it, you sort of get this false feeling that you're in a hidden secret place.
And as you learn the details, like once you realize that you can change your nickname, you start learning those slash commands, you get this, not necessarily false, but you get this sense of accomplishment that you've learned an archaic skill. Much like how people who use those fucking Bloomberg terminals feel really proud of themselves that they know how to use that terrible UI.
So what you get is pretty much you get Freenode, where open source people chat about their open source projects. You get channels for Ubuntu. Pretty much every open source project in the universe has a channel on Freenode. And what they use it for is, usually the overall discussion on an open source project is going to happen on a newsletter, not a news group, a newsletter.
Yeah.
Right? Or a listserv. And they might have a forum somewhere, maybe. They might have a bug tracker, which has certain things. But the IRC is usually going to be where, the real-time action happens. You have a problem, you need to get the answer right now. You couldn't find it on Google, you couldn't wait for it on Stack Exchange. You go to the IRC channel for the thing. The developers who actually work on the thing, need to discuss, and it's too slow for them to discuss in forums, so they're always in the dev IRCs. The big Ubuntu dev, separate channel for the people who work on Ubuntu, sitting in there hanging out, talking about stuff, because there's too many of them to use like an IM conversation, right? You need to talk to all these people at once. You're on some sort of team that needs to real-time communicate with each other, right? And these are the things that IRC still does, and there really aren't any other chats out there. The IM protocols that are...
They're too ephemeral.
Yeah, you see anyone using GChat to have a real-time chat?
I do, but again,
with
it's
multiple,
ephemeral.
right?
Yes,
yeah.
I do often, but it's very ephemeral, and it lacks a lot of...
And,
I use Google Hangouts more often.
Yeah, you could use Hangout, but Hangout's got like this video chat on it. That's like when you start a Hangout, that's a temporary... thing that's going to have a start and an end time. It's like, for a meeting. And IRC is like an always on, discussion between multiple peoples. It's logged. There's bots to do helpful things in there.
Ubuntu.
Right? And there's really nothing else has been able to compete with it in any way. And even if you did make something that had all the features but had a user interface that's accessible, perhaps web-based, perhaps a nice application, there's so much already in IRC you couldn't get people to bail out of it, especially with that network aspect. That's really the thing, is that you sign up, you connect to this IRC network to join Freenode, and you're always connected to the KDE channel because you're in the KDE community, right? Well, you're already connected to Freenode all the time, and now you have a question for someone who works on, I don't know, Firefox. I guess the Firefox channel's also on Freenode, I think. No, I actually think they have a Mozilla one that's separate. But, the channel for the other open source project you need to question about is also on Freenode, so you're already on there too. And now you're in 2 channels all the time, and it just spreads like that. And, you would have to literally bring every single channel off of every IRC network to put any dent in that. It's probably going to hang around forever.
Yeah.
And as long as TCP/IP is used.
And I think the culture is going to persevere through all of that time.
As long as there's internets, it's going to be IRC. So it might be worth your time. I mean, I used it, I didn't use it, I used it, I didn't use it. Sometimes I went in there to get files, in the sort of dark ages of peer-to-peer, like after Napster died, but before BitTorrent came out, I was using IRC to get animes and things like that. But now, some people still say IRC is the best place to get stuff. Because people don't always make torrents of everything. But, the fan subbers themselves run the IRC channels where you can get everything.
But they're usually ops, so you have to get in their good graces and join that nobility.
And then people do weird stuff, like they'll have, they'll have like ratios. Like you have to, they'll have like these file servers in IRC. You submit files to the file server. Like, okay, I got to upload an anime. So you upload it and you get credits, and then you can use the credits to download some other anime. But you can't upload something they already got, right? And you're sort of contributing to this guy's file store. You need to trade files, even though it's digital bits that are free. People trade them.
If you want to get an idea of now, while some of these are somewhat fabricated, remember bash.org?
Yep.
I'll link to it. Just go here and read everything on the page I'm about to link to. That's actually kind of what IRC is like.
Yep. So I don't know if there's much more we can say about IRC. We're looking for Monday show ideas. Send them in. Yeah.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
As long as I wear this, I'm able to cast 3 spells simultaneously.
Remember, this is dangerous, kids, so don't try it at home.
As long as I wear this, I'm able to cast